Hello everyone, this is part 7 of What If Naruto Had the Full 9 Tails, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. People from all over the lands had gathered in Konoha to watch the final part of the Chunin exams. Family had taken off work to watch the 10 genin perform. Daimyos had left the countries just to witness this event. Bets on the fighters were so numerous that counting them would take years just to get halfway finished. It was said that this year's competitors were as promising as the year the current Hyuga, Aburame, Yamanaka, and Nara clan heads had competed along with the Yondaime Hokage, the Yondaime Reikage, and his brother Killer Bee in this same stadium. Hokage Dono, I think I will find these exams to be very interesting. The current Kazekage of Suna and also the father of all 3 Suna ninjas still in the exams stated. I feel the same way. You must be proud all of your children have made it to the finals. Hiruzen replied. The Kazekage nodded, looking down at arena floor where the competitors have gathered. They do their village proud. I expect them to make it far in this tournament. Especially Gaara, the Kazekage said. I wouldn't be too sure. Young Naruto-kun may be more than a match for Gaara. Sarutobi replied calmly. The Kazekage nodded in consideration. Down at the arena the fighters were waiting patiently for their proctor to arrive. Good luck Naruto, you probably have the most powerful shinobi. Honestly, this entire competition is just troublesome. Shikamaru groaned as he stood in a group with Naruto, Choji, and Shino. Shika, you should be excited. I mean, we could make history today. Choji stated. How do you figure that? Naruto asked, though his attention was more on Gaara than their conversation. Well, if one of us is promoted we would have the shortest time as genin ever. Jiraiya of the Sannin had made the Yondaime wait a year before his team could compete. Choji asked. Though your comment is interesting, being known for something like that would not be beneficial. Shino retorted. Choji was about to reply but was stopped by Shikamaru. Choji, he's right. In our profession, sticking out is the last thing you want. Shikamaru explained. Choji pulled out a bag of chips and nodded as he began to eat. The rest of their conversation was nothing more than idle chit-chat. Alright, it's time to get this show on the road. Genma shouted as he appeared in the center of the arena. First up, Sasuke Uchiha and Neji Hyuga. Everybody else make your way to the fighter's box. With a curt nod, everybody but Neji and Sasuke made their way off the arena floor. Him, the Hyuga prodigy and the last of the mighty Uchiha clan. The Kazekage said aloud. This fight might just show us which is really the greatest of the great dojutsu. Indeed. Hiruzen responded. Ladies and gentlemen, the first fight of the Chunin selection exams begins now. Sasuke Uchiha vs Neji Hyuga. Begin. Genma shouted before using Shunshin to exit the arena floor. The two fighters enter their stances as they begin to size each other up. Neither makes a noise as their stare down takes place. Finally, Sasuke is the one to break the silence. It seems this fight is being overrated. Some simple Hyuga branch member could never possibly beat an Uchiha elite. Sasuke stated, trying to rile Neji up. To his surprise, the Hyuga smirked and reached for his headband. You were mistaken when you said I'm just a simple branch member. Neji replied. In one swift motion, the Hyuga prodigy removed his headband to reveal that his forehead was not marred by the caged bird seal but as clean as a new piece of paper. I am no longer some branch member, I am the Hyuga heir. By the way, being the elite of one is not very impressive. Sasuke glared and within an instant his Sharingan was active and he was charging Neji. The Hyuga remained calm as he activated his Byakugan and waited for Sasuke to come to him. Sasuke lashed out with punch to Neji's stomach but the Hyuga sidestepped the fist. Hyuga attempted to counter the palm strike to the Sasuke's exposed side but Sasuke brought his elbow down on Neji's wrist, making miss entirely. Sasuke then drops to the ground and sweeps Neji's feet from under him. Neji didn't miss a beat though as he simply finishes the flip and lands on his feet in a crouch position. As Sasuke got up, Neji poked the Uchiha in the shoulder. Sasuke growls and kicked Neji in the face. Neji ducked under the strike and tapped Sasuke's leg in 3 different places. Sasuke jumped back and began to rub his leg to regain feeling. I'm not impressed. It seems fate has already decided a winner in this fight and it is me. Neji said as he drops into the Juoken stance. Sasuke growled and began a series of hand signs. Fire style. Grand Fireball Jutsu. Sasuke shouted before exhaling a giant fireball. Sasuke watched in surprise as Neji began to spin. Kaitan. Neji shouted as he was encased in a large dome of chakra. The fireball struck the dome and simply fizzled out. Neji stopped spinning and looked at the Sasuke with an arrogant smirk. I'm still not impressed, Neji said casually. Sasuke growled and charged Neji while going through hand signs. Fire-style Phoenix Flower Jutsu. Sasuke shouted, spitting multiple little fireballs at Neji. Neji dodged in between the fireballs and took off at Sasuke. Unnoticed by him when the mini fireballs fizzled out, they revealed shuriken with ninja wire tied to them. Sasuke flicked his wrist and the shuriken changed course and wrapped around the unsuspecting Neji. Neji gritted his teeth when the shuriken embedded themselves in his body. Fire style. Dragon Fire Jutsu. Sasuke said as he blew a flame along the wire. The flame reached Neji and he was engulfed by fire. Sasuke growled and ducked under a palm strike from Neji. The flames cleared and a burnt log was revealed. Sasuke turned to see Neji pulling shuriken out of H's body. It seems we're at a standstill. Sasuke called out to Neji. No, I just haven't taken you seriously. When I choose to, this fight will end. Neji said as he pulled out the last shuriken. Sasuke hesitated the moment Neji said that. Don't underestimate me. Sasuke growled. I haven't, you see, unlike your eyes, mine have not blinded me to the truth. You think due to your status as lone Uchiha you are an elite in this village. Your title means little if you don't have the skill to back it up. Neji said as he vanished. He appeared in front of Sasuke and slammed his palm into Sasuke's chest. Get up, I plan to beat the Hyuga superiority. No, I will beat my superiority to you into your head letter by letter. Sasuke go up and glared at Neji. You talk too much. I wanted to save this for a later fight, but I guess I'm going to have to get serious. Sasuke said just before dropping into the Goken stance. In a blink Sasuke disappeared from view. That's our fighting style, Guy sensei. Lee said. Guy nodded and looked to Kakashi, who was engrossed in his orange book. I needed him to increase his speed quickly. I didn't mean to offend you, Guy. I didn't teach him to use the gates though. Kakashi replied. Guy nodded but Lee didn't respond. It took me years to reach that level, yet Sasuke-san did the same thing in a month. Maybe hard work is simply not enough. Lee thought. To his surprise, Guy sensei seemed to read his mind. My youthful student, you should never sell yourself short. Just because Sasuke-san has achieved some relative closeness to your speed doesn't mean his flames of youth burn as bright as yours. Guy stated. He's right, I think. Sasuke may be able to reach that speed, but because his body isn't naturally capable of doing that, he can only maintain it for around a few minutes at a time. Kakashi added. Neji rolled his eyes as he dropped into the Juoken stance. If you really thought speed was going to help you, then you're sadly mistaken. Neji ducked down, avoiding a roundhouse kick from Sasuke, who had appeared in front of Neji. Neji didn't bother to counter as the Uchiha was gone in an instant. Neji turned around and jumped over an axe kick. While in the air, Neji leaned back, barely dodging a punch from Sasuke. The moment Neji touched the ground, he sidestepped, avoiding a knee. Neji smirked as he turned around and caught Sasuke fist, surprising Sasuke and a majority of the crowd. Sasuke couldn't react in time to avoid the palm strike Neji sent to his stomach. If my teammate couldn't beat me, and he's faster than you, I might add, what makes you could? Neji asked as he watched Sasuke get up. The Uchiha wiped a line of blood that had dribbled down his chin off before glaring at Neji. This ends now. Sasuke before jumping onto the wall behind him. The Uchiha sped through hand signs before putting his hand toward the wall he was standing on and bracing it with his other hand. Lightning began to crackle around his hand and the distinct sound of chirping birds resounded the arena. Kakashi, you taught him that, knowing he would be fighting another Konoha ninja. Guy yelled. To his surprise, Kakashi was putting away his book. Once that was done, Kakashi was about to rush the field. The duo were about to jump down to intercept Sasuke when somebody grabbed their arms. What are you doing? We have to stop this before somebody gets hurt. Kakashi said. If you didn't want somebody to get hurt, why did you teach him that jutsu? Guy growled. It was meant to be a last resort against Gaara. If he faced him, I forbid from using on the other competitors. Kakashi retorted. Yeah, because a kid as mentally unstable as the boy is going to listen to that. Anko said as she released Guy and Kakashi's arms. But it's too late now. If you hadn't have grabbed us, then we could have stopped them. Guy yelled his frustration and fear for his student getting the better of him. Think about if you would have stopped Sasuke's attack, Neji would have been disqualified and he's been winning. Just have some faith in your student, Guy. Neji watched carefully as Sasuke began to charge him, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. The moment Sasuke was off the wall, Neji began to spin. Kaiten. Neji shouted as he was encased in a dome of chakra. Sasuke reached the dome and using all the momentum he had jabbed at it with his encased in lightning. Chidori. The two jutsu battled against each and the crowd watched with bated breath. Sasuke pushed harder and began channeling more chakra into the jutsu. The lightning around his fist intensified and the chirping became blaring. Neji's chitin began to cave inward until the Hyuga added more chakra. Neji's rotation doubled in size and launched Sasuke back into a wall. It appears the ultimate defensive move remains unbeatable. The Kazekage said as he watched Sasuke pull himself out of the wall. Yes, the chitin is one of the crown jewels of the Hyuga clan. Hiruzen replied. Uchiha, this fight ends now, you are in my field of divination. Neji said. He dropped into a new stance. Before anybody could react, Neji was in front of Sasuke. 8 trigrams 2 palms. Neji said, striking Sasuke. The Uchiha managed to dodge them. 4 palms, Sasuke only managed to dodge 2 strikes. 8 palms, Sasuke was only able to avoid 1. 16 palms, 32 palms, Sasuke was helpless as Neji landed strike after strike. 8 trigrams 64 palms, Neji shouted, ending the relentless assault with a palm strike to Sasuke's chest. Sasuke gasped in pain and his entire body was supported on Neji's arm. The Hyuga pulled his hand back and Sasuke fell ungracefully to the ground. Proctor called her. Neji started only to pause as Sasuke slowly got up. Purple menacing chakra began to swirl around Sasuke as his body became covered in black flame-like markings. I'll kill you. Sasuke shouted as he charged Neji. The Uchiha didn't clear half the distance before he was put to stop by multiple Chunin. Kakashi held him by the back of his collar, Guy was gripping his right forearm, Anko was in a crouch as she grasped his right wrist, Genma stood in front of him with his hand on his chest. This fight is over, Uchiha-san, you have lost. Genma said calmly. Sasuke growled and the purple chakra began to swirl around wilder. Don't make us use force, Sasuke. Kakashi growled. Sasuke smirked. Bring it. Sasuke murmured before spinning out of the grasp of the Chunin. Genma appeared behind Sasuke and lashed out with a punch, but Sasuke lazily tilted his head to the side, dodging the strike. Not giving the Chunin time to recover, Sasuke hit him with a vicious elbow to the stomach. Genma doubled over in pain before Sasuke turned around and kicked him in the face. Sasuke in a flash extended both his hands out, catching Anko shadow snakes and Guy's punch. Sasuke leaned to the side and kicked Guy away, then pulled Anko to him with her snakes. The moment Anko was in range, Sasuke kneed her back away while maintaining his hold on the snakes. Sasuke used the snakes to pull Anko back like a yo-yo and kneed her again. This time he released Anko and jumped back and avoiding an axe kick from Kakashi. The two stared each other down, Sharingans blazing until Sasuke gasped. Holding a kunai to his throat was Anko. Guy was holding Sasuke's right arm while Genma was holding his left. How? Sasuke asked, stunned. Were Chunin, kid, you think some cheap power you got from Orochimaru would put you on our level? Genma said. Take a look for yourself. Sasuke glanced to his left and saw a puddle of mud was where Anko should have been. At his right, the area Guy was supposed to be was only occupied by a log, and looking behind him there was no sign that Genma had even been there. Shadow clone. Genma stated. Sasuke was about retorted when a well-placed chop to his neck knocked him unconscious. Kakashi picked the boy up and sighed. I'll take him to the holding cells until Jiraiya-sama can put a stronger seal on him. Kakashi disappeared in a leaf shunshin while Guy and Anko headed back toward the spectator box. Will the next competitors please make their way to the arena floor? Genma shouted. Proctor, I forfeit. Kankuro called. His announcement was acknowledged with the shouts of displeasure from the crowd. Tenten growled and eyed Kankuro warily. It appears we fight now. Shino said before his body fell to the floor as bugs that immediately scattered. Troublesome. Shikamaru grumbled before heading to the stairs. Ladies and gentlemen, the second fight of the Chunin exams between Shino Aburame and Shikamaru Nara. Competitors, you may begin. Genma declared before he exited the arena. Shino instantly went on the offense, charging straight at Shikamaru. When Shino was a few meters away, he tapped a seal on his body, releasing his bow. Shikamaru jumped back, barely avoiding a swing from Shino. Shikamaru then pulled out 2 kunai. Troublesome, I guess a half a month with my mom weren't a waste. Shikamaru grumbled. Shikamaru then blocked a horizontal attack from Shino's bow. Shikamaru pushed the bow aside and attempted to get closer to Shino, but the Aberame used the bow momentum to turn it around and jabbed at Shikamaru with the other end. The strike landed and Shikamaru was launched back, but the moment he hit the ground, Shikamaru turned into a log. Shino glanced around the arena and spotted a shadow speeding toward him from a cluster of trees. The Aberame jumped back while simultaneously sent a swarm of insects toward the trees. Earth style, earth and stone dragon jutsu. Shino murmured. The ground began to shake until a dragon of dirt rose out of the ground. The dragon spiraled into the air before jetting toward the trees. Moments before it made contact, Shikamaru jumped out of the trees to avoid it. Shikamaru, however, wasn't prepared for Shino to appear right by him, finishing a jutsu. Earth style, earth flow river. Shino said. The ground underneath Shikamaru turned into a river of mud that swept the young genius away. Shino instantly continued another chain of hand signs. Earth style, earth dragon bullet. Shino mumbled. A dragon's head rose out of the mud and began shooting high-speed bullets at the off-balanced Shikamaru. The bullets connected with Shikamaru and slammed him into the wall. Shikamaru then turned into a log and Shino tried to turn around only to find he couldn't. Shadow possession jutsu success. Shikamaru said from behind Shino. The young Aberame found his body was turning around on its own accord. Shikamaru forced Shino's body to meet him in the center of the ring. Well, it seems things are in your favor, Shino stated as Genma dropped down next to the two. Well, things aren't always what they look like, but you know that. Shikamaru replied. Shikamaru lifted his arm, making Shino do the same. Proctor, I forfeit, he has this match won, Shikamaru stated. Shikamaru released his shadow possession and seconds afterward a large swarm of insects crawled out of his pants legs and back to Shino. Winner Shino Aburame. Genma shouted. Will Temari and Choji Akamaiki make their way down to the arena floor? Genma stated. Temari opened her fan and jumped off the railing of the competitor's booth. The blonde kunoichi sat on top of the fan and it acted like a glider, allowing Temari to float down to the arena. Show off. Ino mumbled up in the spectators section. Hey Asuma-sensei, how do you think Chuji will do? I'm not too sure. That girl relies a little too heavily on that fan of hers, so if Chuji can separate it from her, he might be able to win. Asuma replied before take a long drag from the cigarette in his mouth. Do you think he can do it? Sakura asked from her spot next to Ino. I'm not sure. Chuji, like Ino and Shikamaru, spent this month training with their family. His skills are somewhat of a wild card, Asuma stated, taking another pull of his cancer stick. Before the conversation could continue, Genma's voice cut through the crowd. Let the third fight of the CHUNIN exams between CHOUJIAKIMICHI and Temari start now. Competitors, you may begin, Genma shouted before jumping off of the arena floor. Hey Fatso, I'm gonna end this quickly, Temari said, stated, pulling her fan off her back. Yet before she could open the fan, Temari was forced to jump back or be crushed an enormous fist. The Suna kunoichi looked to see Chuji glaring at her. Temari unconsciously shivered from the look because its eerie resemblance to Gaara's constant glare. The glare that promised death in the near future. I'm not fat, Chuji growled. The plus-sized shinobi swung his fist at Temari and in almost an instant the fist was 10 times its normal size. Temari was stunned by the action and couldn't evade the blow entirely. Wow, I've never seen Chuji like that before, Ino mumbled. Sakura. What happened to him? Sakura asked, equally puzzled by Chuji's transformed state. She called him fat. Everybody turned around to Shikamaru walking over to the with a few bandages wrapped on his body. I've called Chuji fat before and I know he gets mad, but never like this, Sakura retorted. It's because Chuji has enough self-control to prevent himself from harming a comrade, but this girl he doesn't know from a different village calls him fat, plus they're supposed to fight each other. Chuji has no reason to hold back his temper, Shikamaru replied. Well, you're better than I thought you would be, Temari replied as she evaded another swing from Chuji's enlarged limbs. But to be honest, I hadn't expected much. Chuji glared at her and swung at her with his enlarged limb. Temari jumped over the enormous right arm almost lazily and yawned for added effect. Choji then followed up with a left hook and Temari, being in the air, was forced to block with her fan. Temari gasped as the force of the blow not only caused her arms to go numb but launched her back into the wall behind her. A gasp of pain escaped Temari's mouth as she impacted the wall. Seems Choji really improved over the month's break. Kakashi stated as he appeared next guy reading a copy of Ika Ika. Yeah, if you're not careful my genin will pass yours by. Asuma replied. Don't be so sure, Kakashi said as he gestured back down to the fight with his free hand. Down on the stadium floor, Choji reached into weapons pouch only to pause as Temari's body turned into sand and fell to the floor. The heavy-set shinobi scanned the area in search of his opponent, but despite his efforts he couldn't find Temari. Wind style, slashing tornado. Temari's voice shouted from above Choji. The husky ninja instantly enlarged his arms to block the attack. Choji grimaced when the chakra-laced tornado cut into his forearms. Choji grunted and snapped his arms apart, dispersing the tornado. Choji's eyes widened when he saw Temari just above him with her large fan held back like a bat. Eat this, Temari shouted before swinging her fan at Choji with all her strength. The husky Konoha ninja took the full force of the attack and went crashing headfirst into the arena wall behind him. The crowd watched with bated breath as Choji's body hung limply by the head. For a few seconds the entire area was silent. Then just as Genma was about to jump down, Choji yanked his head out of the wall. Black out there for a second, Tubby. Temari jeered. Choji growled as he brushed some rubble off his shoulder. It's time to end this, Choji said, pulling a long thread of ninja wire out of his weapons pouch. On the wire were multiple kunai tied to it and evenly spaced apart. Choji draped the wire around his body before starting a chain of hand signs. Expansion jutsu, Choji shouted, and his entire body tripled in size. The wire that had been hanging loosely in his body now was wrapped firmly around his large form. Temari opened her fan fully, revealing all three purple moons, and waited cautiously. Then, in a motion similar to a turtle, Choji brought all his extremities inside his body and taking on the form of a large ball. Spike human bullet tank, Choji's muffled voice came from inside the ball just before it propelled forward. The kunai not only increased the lethality of the attack, increased the speed, shooting Choji at Temari double the speed most Chunin could match. Temari gripped her fan with both hands before swing full force at Choji. Wind scythe jutsu, Temari shouted as an enormous tornado was expelled from the battle fan. The tornado crashed into Choji's bullet tank and the two opposing forces were halted. Unfortunately for Choji, Temari's attack didn't fade, instead it simply sucked Choji in. The Konoha shinobi, still in his ball-like form, was lifted into almost 20 in the air before he stopped. At that moment large gashes appeared all over his body and cries of pain emitted from the ball. After around 10 seconds the cries stopped and the tornado dispersed. Choji fell to the ground, returning to his normal form, with a dull thud. Genma appeared in front of the boy and inspecting him before calling for the medic crew. Winner Temari, Genma shouted as the crowd erupted into applause. Naruto Uzumaki and my son fight next. The battle of the demons is about to commence. The Kazekage replied, turning to Hiruzen. The fire shadow in turn looked to the Kazekage and leveled him a hard glare. Kazekage Dono, while I can't force you to stop calling your son a demon, I can tell you if you ever refer to Naruto in such a way you will find the results of my actions very troublesome. Sarutobi stated. Is that a threat? The wind shadow asked with a low growl. Of course not, child. That is a promise. Hiruzen replied, looking back toward the arena to see Naruto and Gaara standing while Genma jumped up to the stands. For over a minute the two simply stood at each other, glared, but slowly bloodlust began to fill the arena. The intent started slowly but soon rose to almost unbearable levels. Civilians in the crowd began to crumble at the intense pressure the two boys were emitting, while the shinobi populace was put on edge. Just as it became too much to handle for even some of the shinobi, the two boys disappeared. Less than an instant later they reappeared in the middle of the arena in a deadlock. Naruto had both his knuckle dusters out and Gaara was holding two kunai made of sand. The trench knife in Naruto's right hand was attempting to edge closer to Gaara's neck, while the left-hand weapon was holding off Gaara's sand kunai that was dead set on removing Naruto's head from his body. Mere seconds after the standstill had occurred, Naruto's chakra tails and Gaara's sand entered the battle. The demon-granted defenses attempted to strike the opponent while defending their own container. As time went by, those of keen vision noticed some distinct changes in the boys, namely their eyes. Naruto crystal, ocean blue eyes became a malicious blood red, while Gaara's dull green eyes became a sandy yellow. The pupils in Naruto's eyes transformed into vertical slits similar to a cat or fox, and Gaara's pupils morphed into a four-pointed star with 4 black circles surrounding it. The moment the boys' eyes finished changing, they disappeared and a large shock wave resounded in the air. The crowd looked in the direction of the noise only to find nothing. "He's still slower than Lee without his weights off," Tenten murmured to nobody in general, but Ino caught the declaration and chose to pry. "How are you sure? Both of them are." Another shock wave interrupted her. "Too fast to spot?" the platinum blonde inquired. "Yeah, but the truth is, while that Gaara kid is able to match." A shock wave resounded nearby, causing Tenten and some others to flinch. "Naruto and Lee's speed, he's not used to high-speed fighting, so he has to slow down slightly." "How can you tell?" Sakura asked. And shockwave on the arena floor stopped Tenten from answering, but when a quick glance showed the 2 Jinchuriki were no longer at the source of the sound, Tenten answered. "While I can't see it, it makes sense. The sound of their connections aren't nearly as loud as they were when Naruto and Lee fought. When Gaara fought before, he made almost no movement besides raising his hand, so fighting with taijutsu isn't his style." Tenten was about to continue when she was cut off. "And Naruto-kun isn't trying," Hinata finished. "He's toying with Gaara-san." "Just how fast is Naruto?" Ino asked. "Naruto-kun is faster than Lee-san when Lee-san opens his first 2 gate. When Lee-san has opened up 4 gates and Naruto-kun has Kyuubi's chakra in his system, the 2 are even, and Lee-san is faster than Naruto-kun in the 5th gate until Naruto-kun uses his transparent Kyuubi cloak." Hinata explained, though even with her activated Byakugan eyes staring at the girls, it was obvious she wasn't focusing on them. "They're talking." Upon Hinata's words, Ino, Sakura, and Tenten returned their attention to the arena floor to see Naruto and Gaara were in another stalemate and talking this time. Naruto was attempting to slice Gaara's neck with his trench knives while Gaara was blocking with both kunai. Sand and crimson chakra was flying in every direction as the 2 boys conversed. That's when an insane laughter filled the arena. The laughter sent chills down many spectators' back. "Uzumaki, have you challenged me like no other shinobi? When I kill you, mother will definitely be satisfied," Gaara replied as he calmed down. "You're still as pathetic as before," Naruto stated. The blonde began to exert more force while adding wind and Kyuubi's chakra to his blades. With the added chakra, Naruto's trench knives cut through Gaara's sand kunai like butter before slicing his head off with minimal resistance. "Sand clone," Naruto murmured right before he ducked under a roundhouse kick from Gaara. The blonde ignored the sand spear aimed toward his temple and blocked a back fist from Gaara. The moment Gaara's strike was blocked, a tail of chakra destroyed the sand spear. Naruto then attempted an elbow which was blocked before following up by throwing a punch twice as fast. A crack echoed through the arena and Gaara was sent flying. Gaara got up, and to the surprise of many of the spectators, spider web cracks appeared all over his right cheek. A sadistic smile found his way to Gaara's as he looked at Naruto. Then without warning, Gaara broke out into another insane laughter. If the sudden laughter affected Naruto, he didn't show it, for the blonde simply watched with apathy. As Gaara laughed, the cracks on his cheeks slowly began to heal until no evidence of the attack was present. "Uzumaki, no other shinobi has ever landed a hit on me yet. You not only did that, but you also have managed to endanger my life in each of our confrontations. There is no doubt now, when I kill you, your blood will satisfy mother. In fact, mother is screaming for your blood right now," Gaara said. Suddenly the sand in Gaara's gourd shot out and latched onto his right arm. The sand engulfed his arm past his shoulder onto the right side of his face. The arm and portion of his face took up the form of the shukaku, and a look of insanity manifested Gaara's face. "Now time for round 2. Gaara stated just before he disappeared. Naruto tensed and his chakra tail swayed protectively around his body. The crowd had silenced as they waited for Gaara to reappear. They didn't have to wait long when Gaara appeared front of Naruto, his sand-encased arm inches from Naruto's chin. Naruto tilted his leaned back, evading the brunt of the uppercut, but the glancing blow still managed to send the blonde reeling. Naruto's chakra tails attempted to impale Gaara, but he was gone before they made contact. Naruto reoriented himself, but it was all for nothing because an instant later Gaara buried his fist into Naruto's stomach. Naruto doubled over and hacked out a wad of blood onto Gaara's sand arm, and suddenly a spike of sand shot out of the arm and into Naruto's chest. Naruto chakra tails faded and the blonde slumped over. Gaara grinned until Naruto's body lost shape and fell to the ground in a puddle of blood. What? Gaara asked, confused by the sudden action. Before he had time to think on the matter anymore, a sandal connected with his chin, shooting him into the air. Gaara grunted in pain, but before he could try to regain balance in the air, a fist drilled him on the sand-free side of his face. Gaara went spiraling out of control, but seconds later a heel buried itself into his solar plexus. Gaara vision blurred for a moment, and when it cleared, Gaara landed painfully on the arena floor. Yet before the Suna Jinchuriki could react, his head was punted and he went flying into an arena wall. Gaara's body crashed into the wall and continued to move until Gaara found himself buried 3 feet deep in concrete. Just as the red head began to recover, a fist connected with his chest, burying him deeper into the wall. Gaara looked to see Naruto on the arena floor standing with his arms crossed. The blonde looked up to Gaara with a bored expression on his face. Blood Clone came up with it over the month break. Naruto didn't divulge in any more info about the technique. Instead, he glanced at his trench knives and began channeling wind and Kyuubi's chakra into them. Red-tinted blades of wind extended out of the knuckle duster about 3 feet, and Naruto looked back at Gaara and was about to step forward when suddenly a sharp crack sounded through the arena. Looking back at his trench knives, Naruto growled when he saw the weapons were covered in cracks. An instant later, the knuckle dusters shattered like glass and fell to the ground. Foolish boy, did you really think those toys would be able to harness my chakra? Honestly, I'm surprised they lasted that long. Kyuubi's voice echoed in Naruto's head. What do you mean it was your idea to have me channel your chakra into those blades? Naruto retorted. I thought they would shatter the moment you did it, but apparently the owner of that weapons shop is an expert at his craft. Kyuubi replied. Great, I was just about to end this fight, plus I need new blades. Naruto growled in his head. I wouldn't waste your time. As you age, the potency of my chakra increases, cause your body can handle it. Those trench knives would simply shatter again, and quicker too. The only weapon strong enough. Kyuubi started only to be cut off as Gaara pulled himself out of the wall. Naruto watched impassively as more sand covered Gaara's body. When the sand stopped, the only part of Gaara's body not covered was his legs, and a large sand tail had been formed by Gaara's gourd. The Kyuubi brat has rushed things along, but I guess now is a good time to start. The 5th Kazekage thought before giving a quick nod to one of his guards. Down in the arena, one of the Anbu suddenly formed a hand sign before white feathers began to fall all throughout the stadium. What the? Kakashi murmured as he saw the feathers falling. When Kakashi was hit with a sudden sense of drowsiness, he instantly brought his hand together. Genjutsu. Everybody release it, we're under attack. Genjutsu. Everybody release it, we're under attack. Kakashi shouted. Taking heed to his warning, all the Chunin level of higher shinobi managed to break the illusion. Unfortunately, though the genin of Konoha were aware of the genjutsu, more than half of them were unable to break it. Almost in the same instant, dozens of Suna and Oto shinobi jumped out of the seats and removed civilian clothing. Without missing a beat, they began their attack on the Konoha shinobi. How unyouthful, Guy said before he blurred out of sight. For once I agree with you, Guy. Kakashi replied as he lifted his headband and revealed his Sharingan eye. The silver-haired Chunin then pulled out a pair of kunai before jumping into the battle. Asuma turned Kurenai and smirked. We're missing out. The chain smoker replied before pulling out his knuckle dusters and entering the fray. Kurenai turned Anko to see she had also jumped into battle. The genjutsu mistress sighed before she turned to address the genin. They act like kids. Alright, I want you all to stick with your teams. Shino and Team 7 aid Naruto in defeating Gaara. The Team Guy find Neji and help the Chunin clear out enemies here. Team 10, you two escort Hinata to the bunkers, then help the other genin help get civilians to the bunkers. Kurenai ordered. Hey, how come we can't stay and help here? Ino asked, only to shrink at an ice-filled glare from Kurenai. Yamanaka, we are at war. If you ever question my orders again, I will have you tried for insubordination. Kurenai growled. Your team isn't suited for close combat like the other teams, plus you're down a member, so that's why you three need to help escort civilians. Ino nodded and she hurried to the nearest exit with Shikamaru not far behind pushing Hinata's wheeled chair. Kurenai shook her head before glancing at the other genin. You have your orders, move out. Kurenai barked and the other genin. Shino and Team 7 jumped down to the arena floor while Lee and Tenten ran down the wall and entered the competitors' booth to see Neji standing off against Temari and Kankuro. Neji! Tenten shouted as she and Lee landed by their unofficial leader's side. Neji didn't take his eyes off the Suna ninja. Look at this, more weaklings. Kankuro stated as he pulled the bundle off his back. Kankuro, don't underestimate them. These three are better than most of the others. Temari said as she gripped her fan defensively. Tenten pulled out a fistful of kunai and launched them at the duo. I stand corrected, the boys are better than most. Temari said before she opened her fan and sent out a burst of wind chakra to deflect the kunai. To everyone's surprise except Neji, the Hyuga had seen the fire chakra in the kunai, the weapons were engulfed in flames and continued on toward the Suna pair. The two dodged the weapons and watched as they continued through a wall, melting it as they went. Ten, your flames of youth burn so bright your weapons are heated by it. Lee shouted as he stared at the holes that were dripping molten concrete onto the floor. I think things just got a lot more interesting. Kankuro said as the wrappings on his bundle fell to the reveal crow. Not finished, the Suna ninja pulled out a scroll and opened it. With a large puff of smoke, Black Ant appeared. Now let's get started. Crow rushed the three genin before stopping short and opening its mouth. The puppet then shot out a purple ball that hit the ground right in front of Neji's feet and exploded in a purple cloud. Poison scatter, Neji shouted before he jumped out of the range of the poison cloud. Tenten and Lee also managed to jump out of range of the cloud, but two miniature tornadoes came flying at them. The poison from the cloud was sucked into the tornado, making them take on a purplish hue. Lee grunted before he kicked at the air. The kick was so strong it changed his course and Lee landed right in front of the tornado. Before he could be sucked in, the spandex wearer blurred out of sight. Tenten opted instead to sign in air. Moments before the tornado could impact it, her Tenten stopped and inhaled. Fire style. Great fireball jutsu. Tenten said before expelling a large fireball at the tornado. The fire jutsu connected with the tornado and the two attacks combined into an intense inferno. Temari growled as the large fire tornado made its way toward her, melting the floor and roof as it went. The blonde kunoiki dove out the way of the attack only to have to avoid a palm strike from Neji. Temari found no breathing room when suddenly multiple throwing projectiles laced with fire chakra prevented her from jumping out of the range of Neji Juoken attacks. Kankuro wasn't finding going one-on-one with Lee any easier. The exuberant shinobi was able to avoid all of Crow's attacks and had even managed to slide around Black Ant to land a few hits on Kankuro himself. Damn it. Hold still. Kankuro shouted as multiple poison-coated senbon shot out of a launcher in Crow's hands. Lee dodged the projectiles before attempting to get to Kankuro, only to be cut off by Black Ant. Lee jumped over the puppet and onto the ceiling. The taijutsu specialist was about to launch himself at Kankuro, but before he could, a volley of poison-coated senbon needles cut him off. Lee jumped back and landed on the floor a few feet away from Kankuro and Black Ant. I guess I should get serious, Lee said, reaching for his weights. Before he could, the spandex-wearing shinobi was forced to jump back to avoid a poison bomb. The moment he landed, Lee tucked and rolled away from another wave of poison projectiles. Not on my watch. Kankuro growled as he manipulated Crow to continue the assault. Naruto growled as Gaara effortlessly evaded another strike. For the last few minutes, Gaara had been dodging Naruto's strike like the blonde was nothing more than a mere child. Even when Naruto had managed to strike, Gaara's sand absorbed the blow seemingly with ease. Uzumaki, quit holding back, show me your true form, Gaara said as he caught a punch from Naruto. Gaara then pulled Naruto forward and attempted to slam his fist into the blonde's chest when one of Naruto's chakra tail blocked the sand-encased fist. Why would I use that when I could beat someone as weak as you without it? Naruto replied as he grabbed Gaara's arm that was holding his fist and, in a show of strength, threw the jinchuriki into a wall. Gaara pulled himself out of the wall and laughed. Are you sure? Your attacks don't cause me any damage. How do you plan on beating me? Gaara asked. I'm going to rip that sand body off grain by grain, Naruto replied. The blonde flashed through a series of hand signs before stopping on dog. Wind style, vacuum serial wave. Naruto said before blowing out multiple blades of wind at different angles by rapidly moving his head in different directions. Gaara made no move to block or evade the attack, and when the wind blades hit, sand flew everywhere. Naruto looked at the cloud waiting for it to clear when Gaara's voice rang out from the sand. My turn. Wind style, sandstorm devastation. A sand-filled gust of wind shot out of the cloud straight for Naruto. Before the sand attack could make contact, multiple tails of chakra wrapped around the blonde, completely covering his body. The moment the attack ceased, the tails unfurled themselves and swayed behind Naruto lazily. Uzumaki, why do you continue to hold back? Neither one of us is using our full strength and I'm starting to get bored. Gaara said just before a foot barreled into his chest. The mini Shukaku didn't move an inch and he glanced up to see Kiba with his foot planted in his chest. Before Kiba could jump off Gaara, the Suna shinobi grabbed his ankle and threw him toward Naruto. The blonde sidestepped Kiba, causing the Inuzuka to continue into one of the trees in the arena. Seconds later, Shino and Sakura landed on the arena floor next to Naruto. The latter immediately went to her teammate's aid. What? Naruto asked. Suna and Oto have invaded. Ordered us to aid you. Shino explained, pointing to the stands. Naruto glanced up to see multiple shinobi battling in the stands. Naruto shrugged, turning back to Gaara. I don't the help, head back up to the stands. Naruto replied. Idiot, you and that freak have been at a standstill since you two started fighting. With us here to back you up, we could overpower him quickly, then go back up to support the others. Kiba is right, Naruto Barker. Sakura retorted. Just then a hand of sand grabbed Sakura and slammed her into the wall behind her. As the arm retracted, the hand remained, keeping Sakura pinned. I dislike being ignored, Gaara stated coolly as another hand formed on the limb Gaara had used to attack Sakura. Kiba growled and charged Gaara, only to held back by Shino. Rushing in blindly will only result in you getting killed, the Aburame stated. Naruto's right, he doesn't need our help to defeat Gaara, we would only get in his way. You can't be serious, Kiba shouted. Before Shino could respond, he pushed Kiba to the side and jumped in the opposite direction to avoid Gaara's sand tail. You pest should listen to Uzumaki, go help your fellow shinobi. Don't worry, once I kill him I will come up to finish all of you as well, Gaara said when a giant hand of chakra shot out of the ground and grabbed him. Ignoring me will get you killed, Naruto said. One of his arm was pointed at the ground and Kyuubi's chakra was boring into the ground. Naruto's impassive face turned into a sadistic smirk. If memory serves me, you seem to enjoy slamming opponents into walls. Let me show you how it feels. Naruto then used the chakra arm to slam Gaara into multiple walls and trees in the arena. After a few cycles of the process, Naruto started to see sand come off with his attacks. The blonde continued until he finally heard Gaara shout in pain. There it is, Naruto stated before slamming Gaara into another wall. This time Naruto kept Gaara pinned to the wall and walked over to him. The Suna Jinchuriki's mini Shukaku form was falling off and part of Gaara's real face was visible, but at the same time the sand was reforming. Naruto brought his free fist up and cocked it back slowly, allowing Gaara to see Kyuubi's chakra engulf Naruto's arm. The blonde swung his fist at Gaara and the chakra around Naruto's fist exploded forward. Gaara cried out in pain as he was forced completely through the entire wall and into a buildings on the other side. Gaara slowly clambered out of the building to see Naruto standing just in front of the hole in the stadium. Fine, if you won't bring out your demon I'll force you to, Gaara shouted before his form rapidly enlarged. Within an instant Shukaku was towering over even the Hokage building. The sand demon was almost eye level with the stone faces of the Hokage monument. Naruto looked up while shading his eyes before he let out a low whistle. Hey Shino, Naruto called, keeping his eyes on the giant sand demon. The Aburame appeared at his side almost instantly. How do you propose we eliminate it? Shino, as he took in the form of the Shukaku. Before Naruto could respond, a giant fist of sand came crashing down on the two. Naruto jumped on top of a building to avoid the fist, but were forced to dodge again when the sand demon's other fist slammed into the building, destroying it. Well, I need you to find my Nei-san Yamato and tell Kiba to go head into the stands and help. I'll see what I can do with this overgrown kitty litter box until Yamato arrives, Naruto replied before he bit his thumb hard enough to draw blood. As the blonde went through a series of hand signs, Shino sent out a swarm of insect to find Yamato while he himself went in to get Kiba. As Shino made it back into the arena, Naruto finished his hand signs and slammed his palm on the ground. Summoning jutsu. Naruto stated before a cloud of smoke erupted from under his hand. And Naruto had to control his gag reflex as a sense of vertigo overtook him. When the blonde regained his center of balance, he found he was standing atop Gamabunta's head. The boss toad was standing eye level with Shukaku, allowing Naruto to see Gaara submerged in the sand demon to the waist. Gaki, why have you summoned me? Gamabunta asked, even though he knew the answer to the question. That. Naruto replied, pointing to Gaara and the Shukaku. Why should I? I've fought a demon before and I don't want to fight another one in this lifetime. Gamabunta stated. So you still refuse to show me you're in a demon? Gaara called. You hide behind some oversized frog instead of fighting me yourself. Hold on, kid. Gamabunta growled as he unsheathed his tanto. Naruto applied chakra to his feet to stick the enormous toad's head. With a growl, Gamabunta hopped forward at an untraceable speed. As the toad reached the sand demon, he stabbed his tanto into its arm. With a groan of exertion, he cut the arm off and continues on his forward path. Unfortunately, Gamabunta lost his sword and it crashed to the ground, destroying buildings it landed on. Gaki, do you have a plan? Gamabunta asked as he turned to face the sand demon. Before Naruto could reply, a cloud of smoke erupted by the village walls. Naruto and Gamabunta turned to see 3 giant snakes in the process of destroying the wall. Moment later, another cloud of smoke appeared and a giant toad covered in armor landed on one of the snakes and began battling the other 2. It's a fucking party. Naruto grumbled before redirecting his attention back the Gaara. Can you get me close? Not a problem. Gamabunta said and prepared to leap at the sand creature again when Gaara's voice rang out. Uzumaki, if you won't fight me with your demon, then I'll just have my demon destroy you. Ninja art. Feigning sleep jutsu. Gaara shouted, then his body slumped forward that the sand demon froze. An instant later, wild laughter exploded from the demon. Finally, I'm free, and look, my host has already found me a toy. Shukaku stated with glee. Getting you clothes might be harder now. Gamabunta stated, looking at the released demon with a little apprehension. Then without warning, Shukaku inhaled before drilling his fist in his stomach. Wind style, drilling air bullet. The demon shouted as a compressed ball of wind shot at Gamabunta. The large toad leapt straight into the air to dodge the bullet. Right as Gamabunta reached the apex of his jump, Shukaku inhaled and shot out more bullets. With no possibility of dodging, Gamabunta retaliated. Water style, liquid bullet. The large toad proclaimed before he spat out multiple balls of water. The 2 attack met and exploded, creating a shower of rain. Then, to Gamabunta's surprise, another air bullet shot through the impact zone of the fist few bullet. With no time to make another water bullet, Gamabunta brought his arms up to block the attack. The bullet of air hit Gamabunta and the large toad was engulfed in smoke. When smoke cleared, Gamabunta was revealed with bruises and cuts on his forearms. Kid, we got wake up the medium, I can't take too many more of those attacks. Gamabunta stated as he landed on the ground. Get me in close long enough for me to do enough damage. Naruto replied. Gamabunta nodded before he launched himself at the sand demon. Gamabunta grabbed onto Shukaku, but before Naruto could jump to Gaara's unconscious form, Shukaku shoved Gamabunta back. Hold on a little longer. Naruto stated as Gamabunta stopped sliding. Gaki, I'm a toad, what am I supposed to hold on with? We need to do a combined henge. I'll add the chakra, you just do the seals and pick a form. Gamabunta instructed. Oh, this is perfect. Naruto stated as a creature popped into his head. Gamabunta didn't question him and instead he channeled chakra into the jutsu. Henge. The large toad shouted just before the 2 were engulfed in a massive cloud of smoke. Shukaku waited for the smoke to clear only to be caught off guard when a creature shot out of it. The one-tailed demon almost gasped in surprise when the Kyuubi's oppressing form charged at him, its 9 tails thrashing wildly, destroying even more of Konoha. Before the Ichibi could even think to react, the henge toad bit into its shoulder and grabbed onto both his arms with its front paws that resembled human hands. Now, Gamabunta's voice growled through a mouthful of sand and instantly the Kyuubi's form was engulfed in smoke. Then out of the cloud a blur shot forward and landed on Shukaku's forward. Naruto dashed across Shukaku's forehead, but before he was close enough to strike him, a dome of sand engulfed him. Kyuubi's tails began lashing out, but the sand simply overwhelmed Naruto's defense. As the sand continued to engulf Naruto, it began pulling him into Shukaku's head. Eventually there was no sign of Naruto. Damn Barker, he gets himself killed and I'm almost out chakra. Gamabunta complained, but it's easy to see he was holding back tears. Suddenly a powerful killer intent engulfed the area. Shukaku began holding his head when two giant red claws exploded out of the sides of his skull. The claws buried themselves into his head and ripped it apart. Shukaku shouted in pain as his head was torn apart. Eventually the screams died and Shukaku's form fell apart and Gaara woke up as he fell to the ground. "Wah, what?" was all the redhead could say when suddenly a red blur crashed into his body. The two fell to the ground, but the impact was lessened by the sand which flooded the streets. Gaara got up slowly to see the red blur was Naruto. Yet instead of being covered in one of his chakra cloaks, the red decorating the blonde's body was blood. Naruto's body was dripping blood, his arms and legs were partially crushed and bones were showing on various parts of his body. The blonde was currently lying on the ground staring at Gaara with one eye because the other was completely destroyed. "I enjoyed this battle, Uzumaki, but now you have to die," Gaara said as he lifted his hand up. "Sand coffin," Gaara said as sand engulfed Naruto's prone form. Sand. Gaara couldn't finish before an explosion of chakra launched him away from Naruto. Gaara slowly tried to get up when a hand clasped around his throat. Gaara gasped as he looked at Naruto's murderous white eyes. "You like to play demon, huh?" Naruto asked, his voice darker, demonic and laced in venom. "I'm about to show you a true demon." Naruto then threw Gaara back into a building, completely destroying it. The Konoha Jinchuriki then appeared on top of the wreckage and reached in. After a second of digging, he pulled Gaara's battered body out of the rumble. The redhead was barely conscious. "No, I can't have you going to sleep on me now. Wake up," Naruto stated, adding a heavy amount of Kyuubi's chakra as he yelled the last part. The effect was instant. Gaara's nearly closed eyes snapped open and he whimpered in fear. Naruto smirked before he buried his fist in Gaara's stomach. The redhead doubled over and only for his head to snap up courtesy of a knee to the face from Naruto. With Gaara's body erect, Naruto unleashed a barrage of strikes to his unprotected body. Then to finish off, Naruto hit Gaara with a roundhouse kick to his face. The redhead's body shot forward and began to skid across the ground when Naruto appeared next to him. The blonde looked Gaara in the eye and grinned as he punched Gaara's body down. The redhead bounced from the strike and Naruto took the opportunity in stride. The enraged Jinchuriki elbowed Gaara in the chest and Gaara's body flew into the village walls. Naruto appeared in front of him and punched Gaara the rest of the way through the wall. Gaara fell to ground in a heap on the other side of the wall. The redhead was covered in multiple wounds, but as if done by an expert, nothing was immediately fatal. "Hey there, we're not done yet, champ," Naruto replied, his word coming out in a malicious growl. Gaara could only watch in fear as Naruto closed in on him in a slow, tormenting pace. The pace of a predator playing with its prey. Just as Naruto was within striking distance of Gaara, a spike of chakra caused Naruto to hesitate. "It seems you'll live to see another day, all three of you," Naruto stated before his body was engulfed in a pillar of red flames. Moment later, the battered forms of Temari and Kankuro appeared by Gaara. The two picked up Gaara and silently made their way back to Suna. "Yushi, how did Wen get pinned with this crap?" a long-faced bald-headed man asked as he, a man with long brown hair and a bandana on his head. They were racing away from Konoha with Hinata bound and gagged on the long-haired man's shoulder. "Mohiki, you should be honored. Once we return this Hyuga to Kumo, we'll be rewarded with mountains of money," Yushi replied as he and his partner continued on their way back to Kumo. Suddenly the two felt a powerful and evil chakra explode back in Konoha. "Hurry, whatever is going on back there, we definitely don't want to be a part of it," Yushi stated as he began to pick up the pace. "Fine then, you carry her," Mohiki stated as he stopped and dropped Hinata to the ground roughly. "Hey, careful, we still need her to be in one piece when get there," Yushi stated. "Besides, why would you want to mess up a pretty little thing like her? Hey, how about we have a little fun before we go on?" Mohiki asked. "Nah, we're still to close," Yushi replied. "Come on just for a second," Mohiki replied, leering at Hinata's bound form. "Fine, but I get first shot at her," Yushi replied as he walked up to Hinata. The Hyuga's eye widened and then, in an attempt to defend herself, Hinata hit Yushi with a wave of chakra. To her dismay, it only pushed him back a few feet. "Are you trying to fight back?" Yushi said as he reached for his belt buckle. Just as Yushi finished removing belt, immense killer intent flooded the area aimed directly at the two Kumo ninja. "I'm going to enjoy killing you too." A demonic voice echoed through the area. Yushi and Mohiki tried to trace the source, but the killer intent the two were being blasted with was making it hard for them to concentrate. Then Mohiki let out a shriek of pain. Yushi turned to see there was a gaping hole where Mohiki's stomach should have been. The long-haired Kumo ninja collapsed to ground, blood flooding out of his wound. "Show yourself, coward!" Yushi shouted, his entire body trembling in fear. "If it pleases you to see your executioner, so be it." Mohiki spun around to see Naruto standing between him and Hinata. The blonde's crimson cloak was burning the grass he was standing on, and his tails were swaying protectively around Hinata. "What are you?" Yushi asked, trembling. "I don't need to answer the questions of the dead," Naruto said as he vanished in a blur of speed. Before Yushi could react, Naruto's arm tore through his skull. Naruto glared at the corpse before taking a hold of the head with his free hand and pulling his arm out of Yushi's skull. Naruto then dropped the body and turned to Hinata. The blonde walked over to her and cut off her bindings and gag. "Are you all right?" Naruto asked. Hinata didn't say anything. Instead, she leapt at Naruto and engulfed him in a hug. "Thank you," Hinata whispered as mist covered her eyes. Naruto simply returned the hug. The realization that Kyuubi's chakra didn't burn her was pushed to the back of his mind. "Come on, let's get back to the village," Naruto said as he picked up Hinata and walked back to the village. The two entered the village by dark and found the fighting had stopped. "Wow, pathetic war," Naruto murmured to himself. His chakra cloak faded some hours ago and his wounds now non-existent. Suddenly a kunai came flying at Naruto. The blonde sidestepped the projectile and turned to see a mob of villagers. "Demon, you destroyed our homes and now we want you out," a voice shouted from the crowd. Naruto smirked. "If you can make me leave, I would enjoy seeing it," Naruto proclaimed, making the crowd hesitated to attack. Then a clone of Naruto appeared next to Naruto. "Make sure she gets to where she needs to be," Naruto instructed. Yet before Naruto could hand Hinata to the clone, a kunai pierced through its skull. "Don't bother, Gaki, nobody is dying right now." Naruto turned to see Anko sitting on the edge of a building with Kakashi, Jiraiya, Guy, Kurenai, Asuma, and Yamato standing behind her. "You all realize that if it weren't for Naruto here, the Ichibi would have reduced Konoha to a pile of rubble," Jiraiya stated. "Be lucky it was only the area near the stadium that was destroyed. But if any of you still has any complaints, feel free to take it up with us," Kakashi added in a lazy tone, but a small blast of killer intent unnerved the civilian mob. Before anybody replied, a tree jetted out of the ground and wrapped around one of the civilians. The man gasped in shock, struggled to free himself until he felt metal press against his throat. "You should be careful where you toss these, somebody could get hurt," Yamato chided in an icy tone as he pressed the kunai the man had thrown just a little harder against the civilian's throat, drawing blood. The man's eye widened and he made no movement in fear of his neck be sliced open. Yamato stepped back and the tree released him and sunk into the ground. With that action, the villagers finally realized that none of the Chunin had any intention of letting them attack the blonde Jinchuriki, so they fled the area. Within a few moments the crowd had dispersed and Jiraiya, Kurenai, Yamato, and Anko landed in front of Naruto and Hinata. The other Chunin leaving to take care of other business. "I didn't need you stopping them," Naruto stated as the Chunin's eye set on him. "We know, but we just finished a war with minimal fatalities and you killing a large group of civilians would have killed that statistic," Anko replied. "Besides, you just destroyed a sand demon and killed 2 Kumo Chunin. You deserve a break," Yamato added. "Speaking of which, why didn't you ever show up to help me defeat Shukaku?" Naruto asked his elder brother. "I did, but you seemed to have things under control, so I went back to aiding our comrades around the village," Yamato explained with a bored tone. Naruto rolled his eyes but didn't expand on the subject. After that, the small group stood in silence. Nobody knew how to breach the next topic when Hinata gasped, "Oh my god, Shikamaru and Ino." The girl cried out, only for Yamato to place a hand in front of her in a gesture to calm her down. "I found them and took them to a hospital. They should be fine, nothing looked fatal," the wood user informed, and Hinata visibly relaxed. Another silence ensued, but this time it was broken by the toad sage. Alright, I'm not going to pussyfoot around it, Naruto. The council is pissed. While true you did prevent Gaara from destroying most of the village, you technically were the one who knocked him into the village in the first place. The air moving for your banishment. Jiraiya stated, visibly irritated. So what is this, your final goodbyes? Naruto asked. The Chunin held back their reflex to flinch at the blonde's emotionless tone. Naruto glanced down at Hinata when he felt her grip on him tighten, but Jiraiya cut him off before he could say something to her. No, Sarutobi-sensei died. Fight Orochimaru, so without a Hokage no action against a ninja can be ruled. Jiraiya explained. That's why this was brought to your attention so soon. You and I are going on a mission to retrieve the next Hokage, my former teammate and a fellow Sanin Tsunade. Why do I need to go? Naruto asked. Well, 2 reasons. While you're gone, the council will have time to cool off and maybe drop the motion to banish you, and secondly, I have some things to teach you. Jiraiya explained, trying to gauge Naruto's reaction. Honestly, I don't think it will work. Naruto replied. How do you figure? Anko asked. Well, the council won't cool off, they'll only forget if we're gone long enough. The moment I get back, they'll remember and apply the motion again. As for training me, I don't particularly like the fact you want me to know my dad's jutsu and moves. Naruto stated, spiting out the word dad like it was poison. Squirt your emotions for your father aside, you have to realize he was a pretty strong shinobi with very power jutsu at his arsenal. Yamato reasoned, and Naruto simply rolled his eyes. Plus, Tsunade is revered as the most powerful medical nin in the world. She could heal Hinata and allow her to continue her career as a shinobi. Kurenai added. The red-eyed woman smirked as the statement visible sunk into Naruto's before his emotionless posture reformed. Alright, I'll go. Naruto stated calmly. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.